Dear distinguished guests, dear participants, attenders, dear all. Also to everybody following us online through our live stream, welcome to this event for us, and a very important event. I'm very welcome to today's conference and flagship project that I pledged to organize when I took over the seat in the European Parliament, because I'm coming from the bordering region between Slovenia and Italy, Goriška. So for us it is an important topic. With the title More Europe in the Cross-Border Regions, I wanted to bring together European citizens, EU institutions, and also the experts on the matter. So I wanted to create a platform where we can link these elements together in order also to find the solution on the matter. So in Europe, approximately 135 million Europeans live in EU border regions. Many of them have very close links or ties with the neighborhood country, some none. So in their daily lives, very often they face numerous challenges related to living and very often crossing those borders. That is the work, studies, housing, family, love, in some cases also, and other ties, for sure. So they face numerous administrative, legal, or other issues which may be linked to the access to employment, social services, administrative services, access to health, for example, education, and also other things. So they very often find themselves, due to their personal situation, in a second-class citizens category. So, however, in Europe, we are all supposed to be equal. So this is the biggest reason to be part of this European family. We are all supposed to have the same rights, the same access, but also, of course, the same obligations. In accordance with the Article 18 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, any forms of discrimination on the grounds of nationality are explicitly prohibited. So, dear colleagues, dear guests, we understand the EU has limited competencies here. However, when it comes to quite many everyday issues of European citizens living at the borders, these things matter a lot, especially for ordinary citizens. I am myself coming, as I told you from the very beginning, from one of those regions. As a kid, I grew up by the Italian border in West Slovenia, which was still divided by a hard border. I still remember when we entered in the European Union and then into Schengen in 2007, and how happy we were at that time. We became united, the borders fell, families were united again, and anything was possible. And now, close to me, sitting an Italian colleague, and I'm Slovenian. So this is an amazing European story. But even if it so seems, not everything is easy, especially for the people coming from the border. The opportunities open borders offer sometimes came at a cost. So, ever since I came to Brussels, the citizens are turning to me for help with their issues, everyday life problems, which are linked to the borders. And this conference is to a large extent dedicated especially to them. I hope, dear guests, that today we will be able to address some of these concrete issues and discuss possible situation. It is my pleasure to welcome today excellent speakers, to which I will get to in a moment. Before we begin, I wanted to especially thank and pay tribute to European Commissioner Nicolas Schmit, who will join us in a moment. Nicolas Schmit is our superstar commissioner, let me say it like this, let me put it like this, and a champion for social rights. We have been working on some of these issues together, and it's my great honor to welcome him today. It's also my great pleasure to welcome in the second half of this conference, a Slovenian Minister for Cohesion and Regional Development, and my dear friend Aleksander Jevšek. With their dedication and their presence, both of our distinguished speakers show the importance of this topic, and I believe will bring an important benefit to our discussion. Now, let us proceed with the discussions on our panel. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of our guest speakers, experts, who in one way or another present an important puzzle of this story. Joining us today, we are my esteemed colleague from the European Parliament, Mr. Sandro Gozzi, an MEP from Renew Group, and also, a reporter on a recommendation to the Commission on amendment, the proposed mechanism to resolve legal and administrative obstacles in a cross-border context. I want to kindly invite Mr. Gozzi to take the floor and present the findings of his report and what can Europe for our citizen on topic we are discussing here today. So you have the floor, dear colleague.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Congratulations, dear Matjaž, for this very, very important event. Important event because we are talking about a real denial of opportunities, a real denial of rights, and a real denial of what the European Union and single market can bring to citizens, because here we're talking about 1/3 of European citizens, more or less 150 million citizens who live on an internal border, which is already an oxymoron if you think that we are talking about the single market, and that they suffer from many obstacles because there are still many obstacles for the territory, for the region across the border. But I mean, as Matjaž is from a part of Europe which I know very well, I will start from the part of Europe where he comes from. I was a commission official with the President Prodi. We work on the enlargement, and we celebrate, I think you probably were there, in the New Year's Eve on 2004, we were at the Piazza Transalpina. Piazza Transalpina is a square, Transalpine Square, which is where the railway station is and where there was the Iron Curtain. The square basically was divided into two parts. You had one part which was Italian, the other part was Yugoslav and then Slovenia. When we celebrated the unification of Europe through the accession of Slovenia to the European Union, there was a line. It has been made a line in the center of the square, which reminds the existence of a border. Here there used to be a border. Unfortunately, the border is still there, invisible, bureaucratic, unjust, and the paradox in the paradox is that we are talking about Nova Gorica and Gorizia, about two cities, one single, I would say, citizens entity, one single historical and cultural entity, which has won the possibility, the right to be a European capital of culture in 2025. Excellent. Big success. Viva l'Europa. How would you say in Slovenian? Viva l'Europa.
Viva l'Europa.
Viva l'Europa. The problem that in that square, which is the most symbolic part, the most symbolic point of this, you cannot organize common events. And you can't organize common events because the rule for the security guard of the Slovenian law are different from the rule of the security guard of Italian law. This is exactly what we don't want to see in Europe. And this is exactly why we have pushed to resume a negotiation which was had started with merit by the European Commission in 2018. That was called the Mechanism for Cross-Border Cooperation. It has been blocked, the negotiation in the Council for a long time. And with the support of my group, with the support of the President of the Regional Policy Committee, but I have to say with the strong support of all the political groups, I managed to relaunch. We have used, I don't want to be too technical, but we use an article which is 255 of the treaty, which allows the Parliament to sort of initiate legislation, so to ask the Commission to present or to revise a legislative proposal. We have worked a lot with several member states. We have worked a lot with the Commission. I want to thank the Commission for the informal cooperation and dialogue that we had. We have basically rewritten partially the draft regulation. And we have now less than 3 months to restart the negotiation in the Council. What were the obstacles, what the situation is now, and what we have to aim for, and I am sure that can count on the full support of Mr. Nemec and of the Socialist and Democrat group. First of all, we have taken into account the main concerns of several member states, which basically decided to block the negotiation of this instrument. This instrument is an instrument that is there to remove this kind of obstacles. This kind of obstacle like Piazza Transalpina, kind of obstacle that make a French nurse or a French doctor to wait more than 1 year to be able to work in a Franco-Spanish hospital in Cerdagne because the law, the Spanish law for the recognition of diploma foresee very lengthy procedures. So you got a grouping of territorial cooperation, which have decided to create an hospital in Spain at the border with France, but the French nurse and doctor have to wait 1 year, almost, to be able to contribute. And this is another paradox. You can ask the Commissioner Schmit, if you are an unemployed and you are in Lille, and you get also your subsidies because you're unemployed, and then you go to take a vocational training in Wallonia, in Mons, and if you do that, as European citizens, try to fully exploit the opportunity offered by Europe, you risk to lose your subsidies as an employed person from the French side. So this is what we have to eliminate. What were the concerns of the Council and why we have to push to make it, even if the calendar is tight, before the end of this parliamentary term? There is a group of countries which, I mean, with a lot of generosity, I could say, block the negotiation. We say, we don't need it because we got a perfect regional cooperation. Very good. The Nordic Council works very, very well. We don't oblige in our revised proposal any countries or any regional groupings to use the regulation if the regional cooperation is satisfactory through the mechanism already existing, be it the Nordic Council, be it the Benelux, be other countries. The member states are perfectly allowed to continue to use their bilateral or multilateral instruments. What we want, however, is to give the possibility to member states which do not enjoy of such form of developed intra-regional cooperation, such as the Nordic Council, to have an instrument which helps us to eliminate the obstacles. And there are many examples, I mean, of this kind of obstacle. So, I mean, the regulation is voluntary, on a voluntary basis. You can use it, or you decide not to use it. Of course, if you use it, you have to respect the procedure, the deadline, etc. Then another concern, mainly from Spain, but not only, was you are going to interfere in the share of competence between the state and the region at the national level. Absolutely not, and we insist both in the recital and in the draft article that in any way we don't touch upon the distribution of competence between comunidades autónomas del Estado, la Fédération belge, les communautés linguistiques, la région Wallonie, la région Flandre. Donc, we don't touch absolutely on the internal share of competence. There is no risk at all of this kind. What we want to do is to give the possibility to a mayor, to a local NGO, to a citizens association to say, hey, to flag out, we got a big problem here. Because we work across the border, but we cannot go to the kindergarten across the border because it's reserved to citizens of the city and not citizens who are not residing in the city. So the local association of the mayors signaled the problem. Each member state must identify a coordination point. The coordination point, once the signal is sent, it's got 1 month to say whether the obstacle is real or not. And whether the obstacle is acknowledged as real, there are a set of potential measures that can be used to solve the problem. It can be unilateral modification of the legislative or the administrative acts, can be another way, a soft measure, such as, well, we are following a certain administrative practice. We could use another administrative practice and we could solve the problem in this way. Or we can also, the member states are allowed to say, we got the solution in our bilateral treaty or in our multilateral treaty. So let's use that. For example, France has done 3 bilateral treaties which foresees this form of regional cooperation: Aix-la-Chapelle with Germany, Quirinale with Italy, Barcelona Treaty with Spain. But maybe the authority in Paris can say, we got the Barcelona Treaty to solve this problem. But I mean, the point is the coordination point must give an answer. And as sometimes these obstacles are a tangle of measures, obstacle, administrative practice, administrative acts, decree of implementation of laws, the newest part of our proposal is the possibility to create an ad hoc cross-border committee. In the ad hoc cross-border committee, all the concerned actors, the mayor, the regional authorities, the coordination point of the 2 member states are there around the table and must identify all the possible problems. If we had already existing this committee, we could organize already in Piazza Transalpina events in view of the European culture, not the city, the European culture, the Gorita Nova Gorita, because in that is exactly the example of a series of measures. I mentioned the security guard, but there are many other issues which create obstacles for this kind of cooperation. Strong support. All the group voted in favor, except Rassemblement National of Group ID. So, I mean, we got a strong support across all the political groups, from the extreme right to the extreme left. For once, it's a very good news. The Commissioner Ferreira answered us in a positive way in the plenary, and so we really hope that the Commission now in 2 months will be able to present a revised proposal. The Belgian presidency, according to my information, is very interested. So let's try to make everything is possible to make it happen before the end of our term. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandro. Actually, we managed to have the events in Transalpina, in Več Evrope. We call them the square, the European square. But actually, we have to have 2 ambulances, one from Italy, one from the Slovenian side. So this is, I mean, the biggest challenge for us. But anyway, there, Martin Guillermo Ramirez, you are the next distinguished guest. I have the pleasure to welcome you here. Secretary General of the Association of the European Border Regions, ABRA, has a very long history in this topic. I believe it was established already in 1971 by the first border region, which had started cross-border cooperation in Europe after the Second World War too, with a goal of strengthening the integration of citizens across national borders. Mr. Ramirez, please tell us more about your organization and what you do. Actually, is your job, you're getting easier and harder and more complicated with Europe enlarging, but also further integrating. So is Europe a problem or the solution?
Well, let me start by the end. Europe is the solution.
It is.
In Spain, I'm Spaniard, so I'm not very happy when I listen what happened, but so Mr. Gozzi was absolutely right. The role played by Spain in this mechanism has been a little bit weird, but I think there are other elements there, perhaps, that might help to understand why. But in my country, there has been always big problems and achievements, and all the achievements have to do with the relationship with other countries. And the big problems have to do with a bad relationship with other countries, and especially a bad relationship between the Spaniards themselves. So there was a philosopher 100 years ago, Ortega y Gasset, who said, look, guys, the problem is Spain, and Europe is the solution, and forget about the rest. Perhaps it's too simple, but clearly, but the main achievements have been made thanks to Europe. And at the end of the day, Europe is all of us. It's like when you say, okay, your organization is very relevant. Well, actually, I think we are, but it's not me again. It's the association. That means the border regions who decided long time ago to unite forces because there was the experience of peers of border regions who decided to work together after the Second World War, particularly at the French-German border. There were, every 25 years, there was a conflict that they were not aware where the conflict was established, but clearly not in Les Sahara, or it was established in Paris and Berlin or whatever. And at the end, but the fight was coming to the same area. So this, still many people with wet eyes say, look, all this land here is, you see it green, but it's red. There is a lot of blood of young generations during centuries being here for nothing in many cases. Well, for something, because probably Europe is a result of all of this. So that's why I like, for instance, to take the title. You said, more Europe in cross-border regions. Of course, actually, one of our mantras, we have several mantras. We are kind of Hinduist of cooperation. The more cooperation, when border regions become cross-border, so when there is clear cooperation, we are producing Europe, de novo. This is real, it's real material for Europe, because it's a new material which exceeds somehow the sovereignty of nation states. Because this is the story of, it's about that. What we are demanding member states of the European Union to share their sovereignty to the top, to the European integration process, while they are sharing their sovereignty to the bottom for the decentralization, subsidiarity, etc. And one step more, which is also to share their sovereignty with their neighbors, and even letting the local and regional authorities to use that, not to use that sovereignty, but to use that sharing in the form of cross-border cooperation. If cross-border cooperation would work ideally 100%, there would be a lot to win. And this has been said already by some very interesting studies. There was a study in 1918, I think, by the Politecnico di Milano, saying that reducing 20% of border obstacles, we would increase 2% the GDP of the territories and of the nations which are involved. But even there are some more recent studies with putting clear figures on that. So it's not an exaggeration what it was said by the Politecnico, but there are even more. And I think it's also common sense. I think everybody could be very well aware that if we were able to solve many obstacles for the cooperation across borders, because our borders are not for that, we're not established for that. And once the European integration process gets more sophisticated, then the level of relationship across borders is also more sophisticated, and then we need new elements. And the context we are working with is a context established more than 300 years ago, when the national boundaries were established. So, and within the EU, we think that this is something we have to remove. But of course, when I say this, then the member states look at me very strange. So what we do is to try to show every day the obstacles and the possible solutions. And we have been decades on that. But suddenly, very good friends of cohesion, which is DG Regio, after the push from one member state which we told them, you're a border region, but you sit down in the council, Luxembourg. It's a kind of border region, where they launched a very interesting process in 2015, in the 25th anniversary of Interreg. The Commission took over and made a cross-border review, which was an excellent exercise, putting all the stakeholders, European institutions, nation states, regions, local authorities, consultants, everybody who is doing cross-border structures, of course. After this cross-border review, we had a communication establishing certain things, and it has been reviewed in a report in 21. And there, among many other things, the Commission launched B-Solutions, which we have the honor of implement. B-Solutions is identifying these obstacles and trying to define the solutions. There are already 90 cases have been analyzed and they are published. We have published also 3 thematic booklets and 1 storytelling, which is one of the most interesting, because there are 7 stories of a boy and a girl who have a border in between, and they want to marry and work together, but they have difficulties, or whatever. I would recommend you to read these stories. You can find outside this more than one, where there is a code when you can, through the code, you can get to the publication. Then you get to the 3 thematic, this one, and the 2 compendium. You can also find them in the B-Solutions dedicated website. Then the point is, what we are doing now is to try to keep on getting more of these obstacles, but we cannot be the ones. The ideal would be to have a European instrument, which would make possible, without big discussions, just to identify, okay, look, there is a collision between 2 national regulations that they are very nice for every country, but when you have, but they were not thought for those crossing the border for whatever purpose. So let's suspend this law for this group of the population, and let's implement the law of the neighbor, which is much appropriate, or whatever. And then this was already defined in 2018 as a voluntary mechanism. But some countries like Spain is saying, no, this is, and then this is where I think that they have another, I think they have other ghosts in their head, and which I can understand. There are other member states all over Europe that they have, they also pay a lot of attention to their sovereignty. But, and this is the exercise. We have to be able to put really Europe in the center, and then to try to work together. To have more cross-border cooperation, we need to remove these obstacles, and the member states should be aware of that. Only in this way, we would be able to make one more phase in the European integration, much more sophisticated, where we could achieve more than 2% of the European GDP in the European budget, because we are talking a lot, but we are not even in the 2% of the European GDP. So it's a little bit peanuts, and we want more. So we don't only want the sovereignty of member states, we want also policy fields. And we want also to make a serious debate on some policy areas that, with the level of integration we have right now, we cannot have 27 different regulations. That's why we say the single market doesn't exist. We are celebrating a very nice idea and a common market, but we don't have a single market. And we know that very well in the cross-border areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, my personal experience is that more EU project we have on the border, less nationalism we found on the field. So the next speaker I have the pleasure to welcome today is Ms. Kitty Dubnicki, who is a director of the Central European Service for Cross-Border Initiatives. So it's an association based in Hungary, which aims to declare the separating effects of the borders in Central Europe. They conduct researches, elaborate strategic plans, prepare and implement projects, support cross-border cooperation, and take part in policy making on national and EU level. I'm very similar question for you, Ms. Dubnicki. Tell us what your organization does, please, and what are the main challenges you identify in a cross-border cooperation. Is your work easier since the big enlargement of the EU, or did it get harder and more complicated? So is Europe a problem for you or the solution?
Thank you for the opportunity to introduce my organization, and I can answer your question. Of course, it is a solution, not a problem, but I promise that I will not repeat Martin, and I will introduce my organization. It is very important that I can see not only familiar faces, but also many new faces, including decision maker, because it is more than important to address this issue, more and more people. Please start my presentation. So I am from CESCI. It is an abbreviation, and it means Central European Service for Cross-Border Initiatives. It summarizes what is our thematic and what is our territorial focus. Yes, so it is a Budapest-based association, And among our members, there are local and regional municipalities, EGTCs, and natural persons. And our goal is to serve their cross-border interests. And I also requested to talk about our mission and about the challenges that we are facing. And we can conclude that the European Union made huge steps to strengthen the cohesion between its region. But despite of these significant results, the borders still playing an important separating role, both mentally and physically. And we have to work to more and more to valorize the territorial capital of the regions and to reduce the barrier effect of the borders. At CESCI, we are working on this challenge, and based on our approach, we are working with an integrated way. And the first step in this road is to have cross-border development plans, strategy, a vision. And in CESCI, we have developed a so-called cohesion-based planning methodology. We use this methodology in many cases, for example, strategies of EGTCs, or to elaborate or evaluate cross-border Interreg programs. However, we faced with an important issue, and it is the lack of data. And without comparable and harmonized data, your plans, your cross-border plans can be enough relevant, and you cannot monitor the implementation of these plans. And to overcome this issue, I mean the lack of data, we promote the systematically collection and observation of cross-border data. In addition to planning, we also support the different kinds of the cross-border interactions and cooperation. And in this field, I mean, in the field of the cooperation and in the field of the implementation of development plans, different kind of cross-border governance structures like EGTCs can play an important role. However, based on our experience, the border regions, especially in Central Europe, suffer from lack of human capacity. To overcome this issue, we are organizing trainings and workshops, for example, for the managers of the Hungarian EGTCs. And we also implement different kind of dissemination activities. For example, in the Slovenian and Hungarian border regions, we have been inviting for many years stakeholders and authorities to discuss their cross-border development possibilities. But we can conclude that the more cooperation we have, the more interaction, the more cross-border projects we have, the more legal obstacles arise. And to overcome these issues, we are working together with our European partners, with the AEBR or with the MOT to overcome these issues. And we were involved in the cross-border review project. And we also analyzed more than 10 B-solution cases in the last years. But we also implemented several legal accessibility projects along the Hungarian borders. And in this year, in May, we launched a new project of strategic importance called #Access, with the financial support of the Hungarian-Slovak Interreg program to systematically collect and eliminate or mitigate the different legal obstacles in this border region. This region is one of the more integrated one in Hungary, with the phenomena of cross-border commuting and cross-border urban areas, and with hundreds of cross-border projects. I hope that you will hear more and more about this project in the upcoming years. So thank you for the opportunity to...
Thank you, Ms. Dubnitsky. Of course, it's good to share different experiences. So the next speaker, which I'm also extremely happy to have joined us, is Mr. Slavomir Tokarski, a Director of European Territorial Cooperation, Macro Regions, Interreg and Program Implementation of the European Commission DG Regio. I'm a very similar question for you. I have a very similar question for you. How connected is Europe? What are our biggest shortcomings? Is Europe a problem or a solution?
Well, thank you very much. And I have to say that I welcome very much the idea of this debate, which comes in very timely, because right now we will see probably the debate on the future of European cross-border mechanism that is revived by the recent Parliament's proposal, the initiative of Mr. Gozi. But we are also facing the debate on the future of cohesion policy. So I think that discussion takes place in a very right moment. So a couple of words about Interreg. I think that for the 30 years, Interreg has been the main driving force for cross-border cooperation, and thus for solving obstacles and for fostering cooperation and neighborhood. And sometimes we give it for granted, but I think that Interreg, it is something very European we shall be really proud of. And whenever we talk to our colleagues from other countries, other geographies, other continents, they always envy Europe and what it does with Interreg. So I think this is something very precious that we really should be taking care of. But over those 30 years, we also realized that putting money on the table is not enough. The Interreg experience shows how border obstacles can negatively affect citizens' life and daily activities. And I'd like to emphasize here 3 elements: impact on EU integration, discrimination, and the potential. So impact is the loss of social and economic interactions across the border that otherwise shall be enabled by EU integration. Simply put, one should be capable of doing anything across the EU internal borders as easily as it would be inside one country. I think sometimes Mr. Ramirez is saying that the single market does not exist because of those cross-border difficulties. I guess it's a bit of overstatement, but there is a grain of truth in it. Now, discrimination, I think you were also speaking, Mr. Nemec, about discrimination, and this simply derives from the fact that people in border regions have less access to public services or less opportunities and more red tape in their daily lives when compared to citizens, people in non-border regions. And beyond the discrimination itself, it is also something that makes life in those territories much less attractive than it would be otherwise. But I would really like to emphasize the potential. Borders are the living laboratories, as we used to say, of European integration. And these territories allow us really to test new ideas for European integration in very close contact with people. I think that we believe that true European citizenship must really depart from the close cooperation with one's neighbors, especially now when we see the rise of divisive and xenophobic politics. And I think here Interreg comes with the idea of people to people, of keeping the contact, of feeling solidarity and feeling empathy and curiosity towards our neighbors, something which is very important. And what is also important is that those 3 aspects that hold true for very different types of EU borders. In the borders between dynamic and innovative regions, border obstacles put a check on more growth and creativity. I think we heard here about the fantastic transition that Nova Gorica and Gorizia underwent in the last 30 years, from being a symbol of Iron Curtain towards the Go25 being designated as European Capital of Culture. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I heard recently Patti Smith, who is, there might be a generation gap here, but she was saying that she comes very often to this region. She's a famous American singer, she's a bit old now, to Gorizia and to Nova Gorica because she feels free there. She feels that this is the place where the border has been suppressed. It has not been suppressed entirely, as we know, but I think it's important to to see how somebody who was really always thinking about liberty and freedom, how she feels when she comes to Europe. Also thanks to interact people and thanks to energy and creativity of people living on this particular border. But there is those three aspects also matter for borders that are located on peripheries, and as they really encourage demographic decline and perpetuate underdevelopment. So things could be certainly different if people living in these areas had access to public services, to labor markets on the other side of the border, often much closer than the territory of their own state. And so this is the type of reflection that has been in the center of what we, the Commission, has been doing. And this is why in 2018 we proposed ECBM, European Cross-Border Mechanism, that was intended to really resolve this type of issues on our borders. And following this, in 2021, we adopted a report on border regions, laboratories of European integration, where we have defined actions that we can take in the meantime for overcoming obstacles. So since then, with the border focal point, I think you heard Martin was talking about this, we have been providing really across the EU support in terms of knowledge, awareness, sharing, and piloting solutions. And I think two elements are particularly important here. First is B-Solutions approach, which has been implemented in cooperation of AEB with AEBR, which is really demonstrating what is the cause of border obstacles and how they can be solved. Demonstrating what is the cause, and I think we'll see it in the second part of the seminar, is not easy at all, because you really have to dig deeply into national legislation, to regional legislation, or into diverging interpretation of European law. And then we have created Border Focal Point Network, which is a place for sharing experiences and really promoting debate. And because this is so, because one of the key issues for border obstacles is also the need for this multi-level commitment. And there, if you look into the website, you will find really several studies and pan-European mappings, inventories of obstacles, and the experiences from other territories in solving them. So you can really use them to your own benefit. But while B-Solutions may be of vital importance to each specific case, the number of cases that we can address in this way is a drop in the ocean. And moreover, indicating the cause of the obstacle and the solution does not guarantee at all that the competent authorities will undertake an action to solve it. So this leads me to the main topic of the agenda now, the need to find a solution for solving EU border obstacles and the need to find a EU solution. B-Solutions and the experience we gathered there show that more than 1/3 of the obstacles could be addressed by such a EU-wide tool. And the Parliament itself has estimated the economic impact of removing these obstacles could be around 120 billion per year. So we have proposed the first tool in 2018. Now the Parliament has now given a new impetus to the debate by launching the proposal for Bridge EU. So it is now time for the interinstitutional work to make it happen, and that is why, as stated by my commissioner in the plenary debate, the Commission is actively considering now how to amend its 2018 proposal, building on the support of the European Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. It's been a pleasure to hear. Actually, we have a request for a question coming from Ukraine, if I'm right. So a special welcome also to you and a warm welcome, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Mr. Matjaž, thank you for your invitation, and also thank you for all the members of European Parliament, European institution for the great support of Ukraine. I understand this discussion because you're talking mostly about problems of cross-border cooperation, internal cooperation in the EU. Ukraine is, till the moment, is candidate for the EU membership, but not the member of EU. Even in this moment, we understand how to realize the opportunities of inter-cooperation when we are talking about our Western regions, which get border with European countries, with Poland, for example, Slovakia or Hungary. But for us right now, the biggest problem are our territories on the eastern part of Ukraine, near the border of Russia, with the problems of depopulation, with damaged infrastructure, so on. So right now we are looking for a solution, how to help for these regions, maybe what opportunities may we realize, maybe in interact programs, maybe it's a question for the Mr. Tokarski as a representative of European Commission, how we may realize our programs with EU partners for these territories, which got no border with European members. Thank you.
Not easy question.
Well, cross-border is about sharing a common border, and these programs are designed for cross-border cooperation, right? So it is, I think it is difficult to extend them, 300, 400, 500 beyond the border. Although we have, still we are covering quite large chunks of Ukrainian territory, not only along our borders with the member states, but also around the Black Sea. So, for example, we cover the Odessa region. So certainly this is also important in the context of enlargement, because this is a sort of first-hand lesson of how the things work, and also the opportunity to find partners among the member states to engage with them in a more permanent basis. One more venue for cooperation, which could also involve eastern parts of Ukraine, is a program called Interreg Europe. I mean, this program has been designed normally for the member states, where they can apply for calls, for proposals, where they are doing something new regarding local regional authorities, but also NGOs, sort of new approach to driving economic development. And I think a couple of months ago, we managed to extend this program also to cover Ukraine. So now you should be able, with the next call, which will be launched, I think, in 3 or 4 months' time, to find partners among the member states and to participate in those calls for proposals to do something together with them.
Is there something to add to those words? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think, Director Tokarski has explained this very well. But anyway, I think it's important that we, in our case, we are Association of Regions. And we have a few regions from Ukraine, but we even had the whole Ukrainian border with Russia was full of Euro regions, only 10 years ago. And all of them were members. Even we had our annual conference in Kursk and in Sumy in 2011. So things have changed a lot, and we feel obliged also to support. I think it's very important. In time of war, it's difficult to think, but we have to think in after war. And then I think very important to participate in the network of regions. And then together we can come to the institutions and say this and that. And also it's very important to think of the inter-regional cooperation, not the cross-border in this case, but also more the Ukrainian border regions together, I don't know, with the Polish border regions and other border regions here and there, or even non-border regions, but regions all together to develop. They don't need to share a border if we use this other type of territorial cooperation, which is interregional. All these type of things. But it's very important that you take part in the Ukrainian regions are taking part in the networks and get involved and normalize. And we are trying to support this by different means. We can talk about afterwards, if you wish.
Is there any other question from your side? We're waiting for Commissioner. It's coming. He's in the house. So is there still a minute or two? If there's someone who wants to raise any question. So we have a mayor of Škofja Loka from Slovenia, but if it's okay for you, the commissioner has come.
Oh, okay.
So we will.
I thought of making myself useful, but that's even better.
Now I really wanted to express my great appreciation for Commissioner Nicolas Schmit, who took time from his extremely busy agenda. It's good to have you here, and a warm welcome to you, Mr. Commissioner. As I said before, Nicolas Schmit, it's our superstar. I called you so, Commissioner, and a champion for social rights. Under his leadership, Europe is more socially and just and fair than it was 4 years ago. Allowed me to say, you are a driver of social change, which Europe needs. You saw through the adoptions of the minimum wage directive. We welcome a lot your work on regulating the platforms and many others. Together, we have also been working on the same of the social issues together, like childcare, benefits for cross-border workers. And it is my great honor to welcome you today among us. I kindly invite you to take the floor and address the conference. The Commissioner Please, the floor is yours.
So thank you. My Slovenian is not very good, so
No, it's okay.
Matjaž,
Please just
can I say
change it.
Matjaž?
Yeah, it's okay.
Matjaž,
I
is
know
that-
it's quite difficult to
Yeah.
pronounce it, but yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's good.
So thank you very much for inviting me to open this conference and also to be together. He's not yet here. I don't see him. With the president of the Committee of Regions. I just come from a meeting with the German delegation of the Committee of Regions to talk about some economic issues. So I'm very much in this mindset of regional policies in Europe, which is, I think, very important in a way. Europe is not just a sum of member states, 27. I think Europe is basically much more a sum of many, many regions. And including here, it's probably what makes Europe is the cross-border regions. Well, you and myself, we are coming from regions which are very cross-border in a way, because Luxembourg is very much linked to the neighboring regions in Germany and in France, in Belgium. So we know exactly what the cross-border regions mean, the enormous advantages, but sometimes also still today the barriers, because we always consider that finally we abolished the borders in Europe. Well, we have seen that a virus can very rapidly re-establish the borders, even in regions where there is a strong linkages, strong relationships. Suddenly borders come up again, and there are still issues where indeed borders exist, especially in the labor market, social security, because we still have, and that's understandable, I do not criticize that, we still have very different systems, social security, tax systems, among others. And when people move, mobility then, which is in principle free, or companies which are in mobility, then suddenly we rediscover how strong finally the borders still are in terms of regulation or taxes or other or social security. So and that's why it is important to reflect, because Europe gets closer together if the border regions get closer together, because these are linkages between member states finally. And suddenly people discover that they have perhaps more in common with the other border region on the other side than with the capital, which not in Luxembourg, then the capital is very close, or in Slovenia it's not so far, but the capital which is much further away. So I think this is so important to reflect and to work on the cross-border regions and to help through Europe, through a closer Europe, through European policies also to facilitate life in cross-border regions. So I think this is, that's why I congratulate and I thank you also for this initiative to put this issue of cross-border regions in their European perspective and the usefulness of cross-border regions in this European perspective on the agenda, and to organize this this seminar, this conference here in the European Parliament. So the Union's internal border regions account for about 40% of its territory and more than 30% of its population. Around 30% of the Union's overall GDP is produced in cross-border regions, which also host around 1 million cross-border workers. I'm coming from a country without the cross-border workers, it could not function. It's as simple. That's why COVID was such a danger because it was dangerous as a virus, but it was dangerous because of the consequences. If borders close, cross-border regions are in difficulty because they are so interdependent for those who go and work on the other side, or just for the companies or public services like hospitals, where there are a lot of exchanges. So the question is, do cross-border regions need more Europe? And here the answer is obvious. Yes, we need more Europe in cross-border regions. If you live in Berlin, although Berlin is not so far away from the Polish border, so bad example. If you live in Madrid or Paris, well, you do not have the feeling that there is a daily exchange with another member state, that people are commuting every day. But this is not the case when you live in Slovenia, close to the Austrian border. Well, you get that feeling very clearly, and very often, well, you can find bilateral solutions, not always so easy, I must say, and especially when you have different cross-border partners with very different legislation. So the solution would be to have more common European solutions in this context. Now, a few ideas what Europe is already doing, especially in relation to mobility, because it's very much about mobility. Since the 90s, we have supported the US cross-border partnerships, and these partnerships represent a unique cooperation between public employment services and social partner organizations. They get money from the ESF, they support workers, they have common projects, also recruitment and so on. I was a labor minister, so I have a lot relied on this cross-border US cooperation and partnership. Also, when companies were recruiting, they always try to recruit cross-border. So I think this is something which is good for the labor market. It's good for employment. It's good for companies who very often need to look for the right profiles and competences across the border. Do we need more of this partnership? I think obviously we need to invest more in this partnership through ESF, but also through EADF. And here I must say there are interesting projects because between municipalities, which are on the border. Okay, now in our member states, it's not easy sometimes to bring different municipalities together and say, well, you need a new swimming pool or a new infrastructure. Please do it together, different municipalities from the same member state. But I see now that more and more municipalities on both sides of the border, they understand that it's a win-win if they can cooperate. Now, the point is sometimes it's difficult because regulations are different on one side of the border than on the other side. But I think this Interreg Europe with programs precisely encouraging common projects are quite important. And I know that Karl-Heinz Lamberts, who will join you, I think, no? He cannot join. Okay, but he was, as a member of the European, of the Committee of the Regions, very much engaged in this. Now, I've said there are barriers, there are still borders in a Europe without borders. And here it's about companies. When a company on one side goes to the other side, I'm very, very, how should I say, committed to respecting the social rules and preventing social dumping. That's about posting. Absolutely, because that's really something very dangerous also. On the other hand, I agree also that we have, especially in a trans-border context, to facilitate the exchanges and the possibilities of companies just to cross the border when they have a client, when they have an activity, to respect, obviously, social legislation, wages, and so on, but to make it as easy as possible for companies when they cross the borders. And this is particular, it's important at the European level, but it's even more important in a cross-border context. And here I must say, I hear quite often still that companies sometimes even say, no, I do not want to do it because it's too complex, it's too different, I have to make too many démarches. So we are working now on this issue, how can we make this easy or easier, how can we simplify the procedures, how can we digitalize a lot of operations, because we are living in a digitalized world. So if I have to notify that I crossed the border, I can do it digitally, should be the rule. It's unfortunately not yet. So this is quite important also in this context. The Commission now is working on this, how to make the internal market work better. And I think here this applies very much to cross-border regions, because here the reality is that companies move from one side to the other, and sometimes then they discover that this finally should be easy, and sometimes it's not so easy. Now, a word on social security. This is a complex subject because we have social security systems, as I said, which are very different from one country to another. And this is a stumbling block, especially for commuters, for cross-border commuters. We have seen that in a very concrete way during the pandemic, when people started to work on telework. Because the rules were quite tough in a way that once you work more than a certain percentage, 25% of your working time in another country, not in the country you have your labor contract, but for instance, the country you might live, well, you are moving from your normal social security, which is linked to the country where you work, where you have your labor contract, to the country where you stay, or then work. But finally, telework is a very special way of working, because in a way you work at home, but you work for a company which is on the other side of the border. Now, we have tried to make progress here. Very difficult to increase the percentage, because that finally became a discrimination for commuters, cross-border commuters, European cross-border commuters, in relation to the right to work on telework. So a teleworker certainly could work on telework, but up to a certain point, switched from his or her normal social security to the social security of the country, for instance, where they live. With all the complication for the person, because then you belong to two different systems, respectively also for the company, because then the company has to pay the contributions not anymore to the institution where of the country of its establishment, but to a country where the worker is living. So here we have tried to extend the limits. This has worked more or less. We have increased the limits here. We have not managed to have a regulation setting one clear rule for cross-border workers, but for the time being, we have some kind of a multilateral agreement where countries individually become a member of and respect higher levels for social security. This is not what I could imagine as the best solution, because I would say, well, anyway, you have to pay your contributions not in the country where you live, but in the country where you work, where you produce. But this was not so easy to accept. But this is at least now a provisionary solution, and we see that it seems to work now, this multilateral framework, but we still, I think, have to work on this and to make to work on the rules. This is for social security. We have not talked about taxation, because taxation, as you know, the Union has not very high competences in taxation, and especially all taxation issues have to be decided unanimously. So for taxation, it is still an issue which is decided on a bilateral base. There are some understanding to increase also the levels of taxation where you pay your taxes once you are, especially on telework, but still this is very marked by national interest. So these are among the issues which cross-border regions are faced with. And I think here Europe can do more. We have tried to do it, taking the lessons from COVID, taking the lessons also from big changes in the way how people work. Telework is one example. And I think it's not enough. We still have to work on these issues to make cross-border regions more European and to abolish finally the borders we pretend always we have already abolished. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Commissioner. It's been a pleasure for us. I know that your schedule is quite full and you have to go, but at least I would like to let you know that we have a video and movie. Many citizens have contacted me directly with their everyday issues and problems, many of which are linked to their life on the border. So I don't know if you have 3 minutes of time now.
Sure.
Oh, okay. If it's
No, we watched the video.
Yeah, if it's okay for you.
If citizens give us a message, we should not miss it. No?
Hello, my name is Lana Mazzini-Ambrosch. I'm a local assistant of member of the European Parliament, Mr. Matjaž Nemec, and I was appointed in our office to collect all of the messages coming from people living near border and their issues. The first one is about childcare benefits. Let me read it to you. I'm a Slovenian citizen and my husband is Italian. We live together in Slovenia, close to the border, but we both work in Italy. I have a permanent employment contract in Italy where I pay all my taxes and duties, but I continue to live with my family in Slovenia for family and personal reasons. As an Italian non-resident and a Slovenian who works abroad, I do not receive childcare benefits. Is this just our case, or is it discrimination just based on where I live? What can the EU do? Vehicle registrations. Hello, I come from Slovenia and I work in Italy. Last year, Italy introduced very strict requirements to register vehicles with foreign registration plates, including for migrant workers. Among many requirements, the leasing contract now needs to be written in Italian and certified by a court. On top of that, we have to pay a high fee. Is this requirement in line with EU law? I am one of many affected migrant workers who are ultimately finding it hard to exercise my right to free movement. What can the EU do? Access to health services. Hello, I'm a Slovenian citizen, but I live with my Italian partner and our child in Italy close to the border. My daughter has her pediatrician in Slovenia. Italy, however, refused to issue a document that would allow her to keep her pediatrician in Slovenia. What can the EU do? Access to emergency assistance. Hello, Mr. Nemec. As a Slovenian citizen with an Italian residence, I cannot call an ambulance from Slovenia, which is much closer to my home. This is because Slovenian ambulance cannot cross the border into Italy, although the emergency room is much closer than the closest one in Italy. I wonder whether the border of our union can be torn down in cases of emergency assistance. What can the EU do?
Hello.
Teleworking. I'm a migrant worker in Austria who continues to live in Slovenia. I pay my taxes and levies in Austria, as well as the difference in tax to Slovenia, according to Slovenian national law. The company I work at applies teleworking rules to all employees. While my Austrian colleagues can work from home 3 days a week, I have been informed by my employer that working from home in another country for more than 1 day a week requires registration and payment of social security contributions in Slovenia. This significantly affects my salary and puts me in a much less favorable position than my Austrian colleagues. What can the EU do?
So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the key questions coming from our citizens. But let me just express my personal gratitude that you're here with us. Of course, we will push all the letters to you. I'm joking, but anyway.
No, you should
but
not.
There are some questions.
No, you should not,
linked to your
because there are issues. I cannot respond directly to all issues, but there are issues that seem to me, at least, extremely controversial in practice. But it's mainly Italy and Slovenia. So I would be grateful if you could give me this comments, and we will check, because there are issues which seem to me, at least, not 100% EU conform. So send it to me, and I will ask my services to check, and I will respond to you. I cannot respond to citizens directly, but so you can respond to citizens.
Their commission, until now, you've been, very helpful for us, and I hope you're going to be also helpful in the future. So it's been a pleasure to hosting you.
Okay.
All the best too. Okay. So those problems are coming from everywhere. Not just to our office, but we will try to push those questions on the political agenda, because as we can feel the Europe on the border, we can feel the real Europe on the border. So this is the main point. I'm sure you have faced at your work similar examples. I wanted to propose, if it's okay for you, to the table in response to what we just saw. But first of all, because we have the minister coming from Slovenia, let me just give the word to him. But I have some words to introduce you just before we come to the end. It's again my great pleasure to welcome among us a Slovenian Minister of Cohesion and Regional Development, Mr. Aleksander Jevšek. Mr. Jevšek is not only my comrade and a friend, but also a former mayor of Murska Sobota, a big Slovenian city on the eastern side of Slovenia. He has great experience in dealing with the everyday issue of citizens, and now he's a driving force for regional development in my country. So I sincerely thank you for joining us, Aleksander. It's a pleasure, and the floor is yours, if it's okay for you.
Matjaž, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My doctor is right. I have to train more because I'm running from the Committee of the Region from here, and I'm a little bit now under stress, but I will try to have my speech concentrated. Okay, dear Matjaž and dear guests, colleagues, it is a great honor for me to be here at this conference, and I welcome this important initiative by a member of the European Parliament and my friend Matjaž Nemec. We have been colleagues in the Social Democrats Party in Slovenia for many years now. We also both come from the periphery, and we both understand what cooperation and Europe means to our people. Today, I was speaker at the event on cross-border event where I present cross-border cooperation Slovenia-Italy. In my previous function, I was, as Matjaž said, a mayor for 2 terms of a town municipality of Murska Sobota in the northeast part of Slovenia. I have many experiences in CBC cooperation with 3 bordering countries, Hungary, Austria, and Croatia. Matjaž city of Nova Gorica borders neighboring Italy. And today I would like to present you Matjaž city's Nova Gorica cooperation with Italian city Gorica. In the 2014-20 period, within integrated territorial investment mechanism, urban municipalities invested in the regeneration of city centers, degraded urban areas, sustainable mobility solutions. Mechanism was implemented in the member states in urban areas, but 2 neighboring cities, Nova Gorica in Slovenia and Gorica in Italy, developed their own urban strategy and their own mechanism. Slovenia under its national program and Italy under the Friuli-Venezia-Giulian region program. Established joint European grouping for territorial cooperation, GO designed a joint urban strategy and program. With the strong support of our Ministry of Cohesion and Regional Development and the region Friuli-Venezia-Giulia, the cross-border mechanism was included also in Interreg Italy-Slovenia program. This was the first cross-border integrated territorial investment in EU. The long tradition of successful CBC between Italy and Slovenia brought the 2 cities together in a very close day-to-day political cooperation. After submit a joint application, the municipalities of Nova Gorica and Gorica were chosen to hold the title of European Capital of Culture 2025. For the first time in history, the European Capital of Culture will take place in 2 closely connected cross-border cities. Italy and Slovenia have provided funding for hosting the event in their cohesion policy programs and their national, regional, and CBC programs. The common slogan, "Go borderless," in true mission of CBC cooperation and carries an important message for the European Week of the Regions and Cities. At last week, concert at the symbolic Casa Rossa Square of the former border crossing between the old and the new Gorica, the rocker Patti Smith presented through her best-known priority, the values of the European Capital of Culture 2025. Freedom, human rights, rich ethnological heritage in relation to the traditional values of harmony between man and nature. The singer closed her performance by reminding us that the power for change lies with us, people and regions. Audience of 8,000 people preliminary opened the European Capital of Culture 2025 and closed with the refrain, "People have the power." We are faced with the great challenge of focusing of efforts on transforming economies and lives towards a global green transition. Cooperation between regions and nations is crucial in addressing such challenges. I welcome various steps towards finding the best solution for our citizens on all levels, local, regional, national, and European institutions. Borders shouldn't be barriers. They should be opportunities for people living in border areas and the whole Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, dear Minister. And with those strong messages, I think we can continue our meeting. Actually, as it was told, it's around 135 million people living on the border, and it could be an example how could be the Europe of the next future. But I wanted to propose, their guests, a two-table in response to what we saw on the film, on the video. I invite the speakers to react to the video and the issue raised. What can we tell to the citizens of the European Union, and what can Europe do to advance on these issues as it were mentioned on the video? Allow me to start, maybe this time in the reverse order. Now I would like to ask the Commission to come first in case I wanted to give some initial feedback. So, Mr. Tokarski, next I wanted to give the floor to Mr. Redinia, but first to you. What can we say to those citizens? How can you react as a member of important European institution on those issues?
First of all, let me say that you could see that we both, me and Minister, we are fans of Patti Smith, because I also quoted her in my intervention. But well, I think there is no straightforward answer. I think these cases are quite different among themselves. And if we take the case of social security and probably also of teleworking, this is something where the key is the interpretation of European law. And this is where the solution should be that the authorities that are involved in this case, they really give a clear interpretation of European legislation. Otherwise, it could be also a case for Solvit. So I think these two cases are related to this. If we look at the case of the vehicle registration, then I would say that this is a typical case where there is a legislation introduced by a country with no intentions whatsoever to harm cross-border regions, but which has this unintended effect of harming cross-border regions because nobody thought that it could have an impact on the life of the people there. So probably here it is this is clearly the issue of national legislation. And then, I don't know, maybe B solutions could be of help to really find the root cause of it. If I think about ambulance, this is serious stuff because this is something which can happen to everybody. And this is something which means that if we have a patient going to the hospital on the other side of the border, we need two ambulances and we need to load him from one ambulance to the other on the other side of the border, which doesn't seem to be the best solution. So I think here we really need to see more cooperation on the health issues, which is also happening in Gorizia and Nova Gorica. And we need a sort of overall solution for those cases. And this is also a case of emergency. And I could witness with my own eyes how it was important that the border regions of Italy and Slovenia had an agreement on the cooperation in the fire services. 2 years ago, I could really see with my own eyes fire brigades from Slovenia and Italy fighting hand by hand, one of the biggest fires that ever happened in the Kars-Kras region. And I think it was also thanks to this cooperation that in the end the fire was contained and did not do much more damage.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, we use our good experiences to deliver it all around Europe because we checked also that issue, and there are no. It depends on the bilateral agreements. It's not because of the European implementation. So, but anyway, it works. But we can deliver some experiences also across Europe. The next, I wanted to give the floor to member and an important friend of the Committee of the Regions, Mr. Tine Redinia, who is also a mayor of an important Slovenian municipality, Škofja Loka in Slovenia. Mr. Redinia, how does the Committee of the Regions deal with cross-border cooperation? It would be my first question. And the second one, and what are your experiences, your personal experiences? Do citizens in a small town as Škofja Loka also face similar issues? Let me just so you know that Škofja Loka, it's not coming from the bordering actually territory, but anyway, it is very important to have also your experiences. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share my perspective on the important issue of more Europe. Well, you know, in Slovenia, things are a bit, as you put it, it's Škofja Loka is an old medieval town in northwest of Slovenia. It's not close to a border in a term or in a relative sense, but I just looked at the map just for purposes of this meeting, and it's like 30 km to the north and 50 km to the west as a crow flies. So that's what many people say, it's very close. However, the mountains do it a bit difficult to cross. In the Committee of Regions, the cross-border cooperation is, of course, one of the issues that the Committee of Regions had dealt in 3 different opinions throughout the last 5 or 6 years that I was checking, and always calling for a lot for similar removal of barriers that still exists. A lot of what we were already talking and discussing today. Maybe more interesting, I would like to share 4 perspectives, 2 positive and 2 negative, that from a maybe perspective of our town and our realities in Slovenia we have today. The positive one, whenever somebody starts to talk about the cross-border cooperation programs in Škofja Loka, I always like to tell them how important this was when we were fighting for recognition, but also protection of arts and crafts that are in many ways connected to the historical heritage of our city. And with the cross-border cooperation with Austria and with Italy, we applied for a program that was specially aimed at protecting the arts and crafts within our town. And for last almost a decade, it's a blooming program that is involving more and more people that are interested in old heritage that we have on that area. The second positive example is much more recent, and it's on the basis of more sad event. As you may know, we had a disastrous flooding in Slovenia recently in August, and Italian civil protection units were the first international help that arrived to Škofja Loka. The flooding was of largest extent in the history that we can remember. 23 bridges were demolished or partly damaged, but due to our friends from Italy, 2 of them are already standing, and many more are now being reconstructed and built. And I would like to put this in a, as Matjaž already said, that it's a lot on a bilateral agreement. And it's not cross-border help. It's a help from neighbor, from a friend, from somebody that you have contact before. And when they see a neighbor in need, they rush across border or not. In more negative perspective of our internal borders, still I would like to point out importantly that on our southern border, there is still a fence that is internally within Europe, putting people apart and not enabling them to enjoy the free movement as we promised them in our European project. And I believe that this sometimes false sense of security is really endangering the European project. The other one is, I believe it has the similar root, and it's much closer to our municipality, as a lot of people are daily migrating to Austria for their work. And ID checks on the border are really hindering that progress that we thought that we are already a common space, in a sense, as an police officer checking IDs, you know, it's, if I paraphrase a Slovenian philosopher, I would say, it looks like a border, it behaves like a border, but don't be fooled, it is a border. So I believe as we here in Brussels are, I believe, all convinced in more Europe, in more cooperation and more friends. But first, I believe that our common task as legislators, either locally or European-wise, is to remove those kinds of threats to our common European project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina. Good remarks. Coming back on the video, Ms. Dubnitsky, what advice would you have for the citizens or for us also as a politicians? I mean, in these circumstances, the purpose of this conference is also to try to find answers, to propose solution. What's your solution on the issue?
My first suggestion is to write an email to Mr. Schmit, and his office, maybe he can solve most of these problems, because it is related to their commission. So, but seriously, I think the first step is to identify that what is behind these obstacles. And the European Union has different services to find the answer. For example, the citizens can check the Your Europe portal. There is a lot of information about different kind of or everyday lives in the border regions. But the European Union also has a so-called Solvit service with national contact points, and the citizens can contact these points and tell their obstacles, and maybe they will find a solution. Maybe they can solve it or not. And in this case, maybe they should contact an authority, a body, to apply for a B-Solution project. And the B-Solution project can identify the exact problem. And maybe it is not a legislation issue, maybe only a lack of information. In many cases, it is the situation that either the citizen or the authorities don't know the exact legislation behind an obstacle. And the fourth possibility is the different Interreg programs which can support those projects, like our Access project, where we will provide a so-called help desk portal where the citizens can report their issues, and we can also research the problem behind the obstacles. So I think we have a lot of tools with the support of the European Union, and we need to combine these tools, and the more tools we have, the more European we can be.
Thank you. My last question, just to let you know that you are co-working with Mr. Commissioner on many of those issues, and we are waiting for some results, and there, I mean, we are quite close on some of them. But anyway, European citizens feel the European Union the most on the border. This was already mentioned. The border regions, as we saw, the EU either fails or succeeds on how capable it is to bring down not just physical borders, but also legal, administrative borders, and so on and so on. So, Mr. Ramirez, everyday lives of European citizens depend on how we address those issues and whether we are able to solve them. Would you say something to our citizens? What must we do? What's the next step? I mean, we are facing the new elections. So, I mean, we opened these questions even before the next, mandate of the Commission. So what can we do as a politician, as a member of the institutions, EU, and so on, for the citizens?
Well, a first answer would be more Europe. We need more Europe, so please vote. We cannot expect to demand from the European institutions too much if the citizens are not voting in the European election. And this is something that has been sometimes analyzed. What is citizens are taking part more in the local elections, and then in the national elections, then in the regional elections, and then in the European. And this gives us a little bit the idea of what is the importance given. But it's not, we cannot put all the responsibility on the citizens. Also, we have to see how the national authorities are also handling the European affairs. But for instance, in my country, which is, I prefer to speak more about Spain, so they can blame me about that. But I would say also a few words about the media. So when the Prime Minister of Spain is coming to Brussels, in general, is for an important summit or for an important decision or an important cut whatever, then it's very hard to find the media making questions about that. But they are asking questions about whatever is happening in Spain, which of course is not interested at all for those who are here in Brussels. And we should profit that. So it's I have the impression that sometimes these big corporations in the media, they don't care about Europe. And I think they are wrong, because Europe matters. And we can see, especially the new generations, now there is much more, it's easier to move from one country to another. Even you don't need to move from one country to another to have a relationship with that country, because thanks to internet and these new tools, you can work even, you can do your PhD in one country while you are in another. I'm talking with a personal experience about that. So the new generations have less barriers in their mind. They have removed these barriers. And I think that the European construction is responsible for that. These generations have grown in the idea that Europe is a non-stoppable process that is producing benefits, mainly benefits to the citizens. And I fully agree on that. So what is the gap? Then the gap is at the border, because most of these young people who don't have barriers in their minds, in most cases, they decide to go more central to develop their careers or whatever, because they cannot have this 360 degrees vision that we are demanding, but because perhaps they don't find fences anymore, well, at least in the internal borders, but they find these obstacles that have been mentioned several times today, or those who are perfectly described by the experiences of the citizens in the videos and also in the book that I told you before. Don't forget to pay a look to it, because it's really, there are cases coming from the ground. Then what can we do? The citizens should show their interest by voting. The member states should make an exercise of responsibility, trying to take not only their domestic issues to the councils, but also to the council meetings, but also the issues of European interest, which probably are issues of global interest for the development of Europe, including the member states. This is very important. I don't know what is first, the egg or the chicken. Perhaps the citizens don't pay that much importance, because sometimes their mainstreaming politicians are not paying this importance. So it's a question of both. In any case, it has been mentioned, the more the citizens are moving, and the citizens are going to move a lot, they will find more obstacles. And then we have to be able to respond. How? B-Solutions is fantastic, but Director Tokarski already said it's a drop in the ocean. But we have 160 cases already showing that there are thousands of cases like this. So it's clear that we need an instrument helping us, even if, as Kitty said, in some of these cases we are finding is because there is a lack of knowledge of the European regulation, which is already solving, a bad implementation, or most frequently, the collision between two different laws that sometimes are asymmetric, national and local and whatever. And this creates a lot of. With this, with removing obstacles, we would be able then to make the citizens look a little bit back again across the border. And this will mean an enormous step for the European integration, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. Before we come till the end, let me just give me 2 more minutes, because I mean, it's going to be funny and very interesting, the next thing. I mean, I have a yes or no question for everybody. And you may also comment of those, but better not. Anyway, should the next European Commission have a dedicated commissioner portfolio for cross-border cooperation? Yes or not? I know it's difficult, especially in your position, but I mean, could be a candidate.
That's rather delicate.
It is.
You see. But I think, let's put it differently, I think that the next European Commission, cross-border cooperation should have more weight than it has now. Because all we're listening to, the situation we are finding ourselves, all those divisive messages, the impact that cross-border projects make on people, on the emotions, on the relationship with the other, shows us how important, and in a way disproportional to the amount of money we have, European cooperation across borders can be. And sometimes we hear those voices coming also from economies for less competition, more cooperation. I will give you one more example from Italy and Slovenia, which certainly you know. There is a quite famous white wine growing on both sides of the border. You have Collio, you have Bordeaux. They could be competing with each other, but they decided to do a joint promotion of Collio Bordeaux region. I think it's a really example of how we could make this different.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Ramirez, European Commissioner on the matter, on portfolio for cross-border cooperation.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think a lot of commissioner whose portfolio includes those topics which are connected with these issues. I mean, social affair, for example, and I think there should more emphasis to their agenda to deal with this topic, and maybe a dedicated commissioner to harmonize these activities should be more useful.
Alexander, what's your option? What's your option, yes or not? Commissioner.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Should member states put place contact focal points and dedicate officers to tackle these cross-border issues, which are very often bilateral in nature? Yes or not?
Yes, definitely.
Yes.
Yes, but.
Yes, but.
Because there are member states where some of the relevant competences for affecting cross-border workers are in the regions, like labor, and especially related to labor, etc. So yes, but in coordination with the local and regional authorities at the border.
Okay, very, very clear.
Can I use also yes, but answer? So yes, but maybe we can use the existing contact points, for example, the Solvit, and we can improve this kind of points. So we don't need to create new network, but we can use the existing one.
Also yes, from your side. Should the European Ombudsman, now we are on Ombudsman, power be extended in order to be able to help facilitate cross-border problem solving? It's also one of the ideas.
More nuanced one, right? Because here we can really, I think Mr. Ramirez was mentioning those fears of member states regarding sovereignty. I think that they could be also present here. So I think, yes, maybe yes, but we have clearly to look very carefully what would it mean in practice.
Thank you. Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, and. Yes, but we should remind there was an initiative of this House, the European Parliament, some 15 years ago, to have a cross-border ombudsman in the Parliament, paying a look to the cross-border particularities of every regulation. This would be very interesting, and it's less strong than an ombudsman of the EU.
Yeah. Okay. What's your?
Yes, I think everybody should promote and support these efforts, but it would be more Europe if we can solve these issues on a lower level. So if we don't need to the intervention of an ombudsman. So.
Okay, thank you so much, Alexander.
It's my third yes.
So, all yes. The last one, promise you. Should Europe put in place a dedicated website and hotline where citizens can ask questions and receive help? We know that we have some of them.
Yeah, we have some of them, and I think they already gained quite a lot of constituencies. So I think we should rather reinforce and coordinate the existing ones rather than creating something entirely new.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramirez.
Absolutely, agree with the sense, but there are instruments. The question would be if citizens would use this more, and also the feedback would be used by the institutions in a better way. It could be very useful for policy making. But in any case, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we need such as portals. We have this one, but we should improve as functional as in the sense of the content, and we should make more well-known these portals. So a mass marketing should be implemented.
Fourth yes.
Fourth yes, but especially in our situation now, we are preparing and finishing now application for social funds after floods in Slovenia. And we know that very important is that people must know where monies go, and they can ask anytime, where is our money is. And I think that it is a very important question, yes.
Good point. So, dear guests, speakers, friends, we have come to the end of today's event. As a representative of our citizens, we are their voice too. So all of us, I'm convicted that today we have done a little bit. We have some idea. We put it on the table. We bought the issue and of the people, and we will put them on the agenda of EU institutions. And I will continue to do so for as long as it is necessary, for a long and until the last such issue is resolved. And we know that it's going to be forever. But anyway, I believe we all agree on that the European citizens feel impact of the European Union, especially the ones who live on the border regions. When problems arise, EU either fails or succeeds in how capable we are to solve those problems. We also agreed that we need to bring down all borders. So for the benefit of our people, all of us, everyday lives of European citizens depends on who we address those issues and whether we are able to solve them. We agreed, Europe needs to do more and must do more. For the next year's European elections, we should strive to do just that. Thank you so much for being with us. I have a nice rest and have a nice rest of the afternoon and a good trip back. So thank you so much for being with us. It's been a big event for us. Thank you so much, and also to all of you. Thank you.